Hello my loves, Tony here from TL Yarn Crafts and welcome to this tutorial for the Hexagon Cardigan. Now I have been a long-time admirer of Hexagon cardigans, but I've always struggled with the fit. There was either something wrong with the neckline or the sleeves were just comically huge. It bothered me so much that I had to make my own pattern, and since then I have made 2 samples with another on the way. Thanks to the friends inside my Yarn Hive community, I have perfected the pattern and I'm so excited to finally share my formula with you. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my process step by step, starting with how to choose the perfect yarn and ending with those crucial finishing steps. And by the end, we're going to be cardigan twins. First things first, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. The Hexagon Cardigan pattern is months in the making, and your support of my channel makes all that hard work worth it. From there, make sure you get a PDF copy of the Hexagon Cardigan pattern, and I've got 2 different ways for you to do that. The first way is to purchase the pattern from my shop, tlyarncrafts.com. And after purchase, that PDF goes straight to your inbox. Now, if you want that pattern for free, listen up. You can join my email list to get a free PDF version of the Hexagon Cardigan. But you have to use the link that's down in my description. I've got links to both the paid version of the pattern and the free opportunity down below. Make sure you find those links before we get started. Unlike most of my tutorials, I really find that the pattern and the tutorial go hand in hand, and you need both to complete this project. So please take a moment to get the PDF before we get started. And with that out of the way, let's dive in and make your Hexagon cardigan. Picking the yarn for your Hexagon cardigan is by far the most important decision you're going to make. So I recommend, at least for your first one, go with a DK, worsted, or bulky weight yarn. That's going to give you some decent drape, but also ensure that it doesn't take you forever to make your cardigan. I wouldn't recommend super bulky weight yarn. It's just a little too stiff, and you can go fingering weight, but I wouldn't do it for the first cardigan, okay? When it comes to choosing fibers, just about anything goes. Wool, cotton, acrylic, it all works. I'm partial to animal fibers, so your wools, your angoras, your mohairs, I like to put that into my projects. It helps a lot with drape as well as warmth. If you're someone who prefers cotton or has an allergy to animal fibers, that still works in this project. This is a great chance to stretch outside of your comfort zone and maybe try a fiber you haven't gone with before. Maybe you're super comfortable with cotton, but you haven't tried bamboo or linen. Look for a blend, because all of those are going to drape beautifully. If you're stash busting or partial to acrylic, go ahead with your bad self. If you do decide to go with a man-made fiber for this project, I would err on the side of DK and worsted. Once you get into your bulky weight acrylics, they get a little bit stiff and you might not get the desired outcome. I want to give a lot of love to Barocco, who is the yarn sponsor for this project, and here are a few of their yarns that I recommend for our sweaters. First, we have Sesame, my favorite of the bunch. It's a splendid combination of wool, acrylic, nylon, and cotton that's breathable and soft with so much character. Every single colorway just sings. You can't go wrong with this worsted weight yarn. Next is Bozzolo, another worsted weight wonder. It has a fluffy chainnet texture that feels buttery soft on the skin. Offered in a beautiful range of multis as well as solids, Bozzolo is a 100% cotton yarn from the shores of Italy. Now let's talk about Wizard for a second, because I cannot shut up about this yarn. Here we have a bulky weight merino nylon blend that works up quickly with your favorite large hook. Sweaters made with this yarn will not only be stunning, but also machine washable. Talk about a win-win. And then there's Remix, the darling of the Barocco brand, most praised for its blend of 100% recycled fibers. This uniquely textured yarn is machine washable and perfect for year-round wear. Use the original Aran weight version for your cardigan, or check out the DK or even the bulky weight version. Now, if you're curious about the sweater I have on, mine is made with a collection of mini skeins that I held double, which ends up having a DK weight gauge. I also have this Hexagon cardigan behind me, and this is made with Lang Cloud, which is a bulky weight blend of wool and polyamide. Throughout the tutorial today, I'll be using Barocco Vintage, which is a perfect choice for this project as well. Honestly, sky is the limit when it comes to yarn. Experiment, have fun. This might be your first Hexagon cardigan, but I'm pretty sure it won't be your last. Once you landed on a yarn that you love, take a look at the pattern to find the yarn quantity that you need for your size. Now, all of those sizes are based on a bust that is listed there in the chart, but you can make any size that you want to. Maybe you're typically a size small, but you want to make a medium or a large for that oversized fit. This is your cardigan. You make the rules. do whatever you want. When it comes to the crochet hook that you use for this project, that is going to depend on your personal gauge. Now we're going to make a gauge swatch to determine what size hook you should use, so hold on, we'll get right back to it. In the meantime, gather the rest of your notions, including a pair of scissors, a tape measure, a tapestry needle, and locking stitch markers. One of the especially nice things about making this cardigan from scratch for our own bodies is that we can use the yarn that we want. And once we've decided on a yarn, we need to decide on a hook, and that is going to come from making our gauge swatch. Here are the steps that you should follow to find the perfect hook for your perfect yarn. Step 1, pick a hook. Now this can be based on the ball band. You can go off the gauge recommended by the company, or if you're working with a DK weight yarn, start with a 5mm hook, a worsted weight yarn, try a 6mm hook, and a bulky weight yarn, go for an 8mm hook. These are just recommendations to start. We'll adjust down the line. Next, you want to make your swatch. Now you can either make a granny square or you can make a swatch with granny stripes. It doesn't matter. I recommend a granny square if you're working with just one yarn, because then you get to practice working in turned rounds and carrying that yarn up with you. Now, if you're working with multiple colors, I recommend trying the granny stripe. It just makes it a lot easier to change colors, and you still get to work in turned rows to see what your fabric's gonna look like. From there, we'll want to block our swatch. Now, I always recommend steam blocking crochet sweaters, so you'll want to steam block your swatch. Once your swatch is blocked and dry, you can move on to step 4, which is assessing your swatch. Here I have 3 granny square swatches. They are pretty much identical. Each one uses the same exact yarn as well as the same exact pattern. The only difference is the hook size. This one uses a 4.5mm hook, this one uses a 5.5mm hook, and this one, you guessed it, uses a 6.5mm hook. Just by changing our hook sizes, we clearly have different size squares, but for this pattern, what we're looking for is drape. We really want to get a feel for what this fabric might look like inside of our cardigan. Starting with our smaller square, I love the look of this. Depending on the project, I usually prefer a tighter granny square, but I almost think that the holes on these are a little too small and it's all a bit too firm. And when I lay it, it does drape nicely, but I know that this is going to be a really thick and probably pretty heavy fabric. So this one's not going to be a good fit for my cardigan, but if you like it, go for it. Now let's take a look at that 6.5mm. We do have larger holes here. This does overall feel like a lighter fabric, and it does feel really nice on my hand. It's got great drape, but these holes might be a little too big. And considering that crochet will stretch and change a bit as you wear it, I don't want to go with something that is too holey, too open, too lacy at this point. I want to give it some room to breathe and grow and stretch. So just like a good old Goldilocks moment, I'm going to go with the one that is here in the middle. I like this one the best. The drape is fantastic. It feels so nice. The holes aren't too big. I really just like the overall look of it. When you're making your gauge swatch, this is more about feel, going with your gut and trusting your instincts more than trying to achieve a specific gauge. Now, after assessing your swatch, if you decide something is off and you either want to change yarns or change hooks, I recommend jumping back to step 1. Getting that gauge swatch right is totally worth the effort at this point in the process, because the last thing you want to do is choose the wrong yarn or the wrong hook and end up with a sweater you don't love. So take your time, make the swatch. I promise it's worth it. Since we're customizing every part of this cardigan, there are no set dimensions that we're looking to achieve. Instead, we're going to measure ourselves and then use that information to decide the dimensions of our final cardigan. For this step, you're going to need a soft tape measure, and either you can measure yourself or have somebody measure you. It's just me here today, so I'm going to be measuring myself. You can also use a sweater from your closet that you really love to help you determine the dimensions of your sweater. We're going to need 6 different measurements to be able to make our cardigan. The first measurement is the armhole depth. So what that means is it's the length of the sleeve when your cardigan is laid flat. So we're going to capture the circumference of our arm and then cut that number in half for our actual armhole depth. Now, when it comes to your desired armhole depth, that is all personal preference. I like to add maybe about 6 to 8 inches to the armhole circumference and then cut that number in half to get my desired armhole depth. But you decide what's a good fit for you. From there, we're going to need our bust circumference. The way that we're going to gather that is by measuring around the fullest part of our midsection. Now, that might be up here in your chest, or it might be down in your belly, whatever is the largest dimension of your torso. Then you can write that down as your actual bust circumference. Cut that number in half, and now you have the back width. To get your desired dimensions, you'll want to add some ease to your bust measurement. Now that number again is going to depend on your personal preference, but I think anywhere between 8 and 10 inches added to your bust circumference is a good fit for this nice oversized cardigan. And then once you have that desired bust circumference, cut that in half, and that's going to give you your desired back width. Next, we need the full length of our cardigan. There is a spot there for the actual measurement of the length, but whatever length you want your cardigan to be is your desired length. So just go ahead and drop that in there. Next, we need the back neck width. So we're going to measure across the back of our neck right before we get to our shoulders. I find this number is a little bit easier to gather off of a cardigan or sweater that I already have, but you can easily do this on your own neck. When it comes to the desired measurement of your back neck width, I would recommend taking either a half or a full inch off of that actual measurement to be your desired measurement. Reason being is we're going to add a collar to our sweater, which is going to add a little bit more volume to that back neck. So we'll make it a little bit smaller to give space for our collar. And finally is the sleeve length. So the easiest way to measure your sleeve length is to go from your shoulder down to your wrist, accommodating the bend at your elbow. Considering that crochet grows and stretches a bit over time, I would recommend taking a half inch to a full inch off of your sleeve length to be your desired sleeve length, and we can add that back in during the blocking process. Alrighty, all the prep work is done and it's time to get down to business. So grab your hooks and let's get stitching. We'll start the first of our 2 base hexagons by making a magic ring. Here's how I like to do it. I'm just going to lay the tail of this yarn over my hand like so, leaving a little bit of slack, and I'm going to wrap that working side of the yarn over my finger 2 times. I'm going to bring this loop over the first, and then that first loop over the tip of my finger like that. I can then grab both tails and tighten it, and if I was to pull on my short tail, it will close the ring. So we know we now have a magic ring. I'm gonna flip this up so that the knot is at the top, and now I can insert my hook. I'm gonna use my pointer finger to hold that knot onto the hook, just like so. So from here, we want to chain 3, so pull up your loop, and then chain 1, 2, 3. That counts as our first double crochet, and we're gonna put 2 more double crochet into the ring. Now from here we want to chain 1 and do 3 double crochet 5 times. So we're going to end up with 3 total 3 double crochet groups. So we have 1 so far. There's 1, 2, 3 double crochet followed by a chain 1 for 2, 1, 2, 3 double crochet followed by a chain for 3. Here's 1, 2, 3 double crochet followed by a chain for 4. 1, 2, 3 double crochet followed by a chain for 5. Almost there. And 1, 2, 3 double crochet followed by a chain 1 for 6. Let's do a double check, okay? So here's my first group of 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need 6 total clusters. And then we're going to pull that ring closed and join with a slip stitch in the top of the turning chain. So in the top of that chain 3, which is right here. Insert, yarn over, pull through for a slip stitch. So now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we are going to turn our work. To keep things consistent, I always like to rotate clockwise. So now we need to put 2 double crochet in the space at the base of the chain, which is right here. So 2 double crochet go here, 1 and 2. We're going to follow that with a chain 1, and in this next chain 1 space, we need to put a corner. Our corner is 3 double crochets, 2 chains, and 3 double crochets. So here's 1, 2, 3 double crochets, followed by a chain 2, and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And we follow that with a chain 1. We're going to do that for each chain 1 space around. Okay, so I did my chain 1, and now I'm going to find my next chain 1 space, which is here. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, followed by a chain 2, and then 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Oop, and 3. There we go. Chain 1. Next corner, 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 more double crochet, 1, 2, 3. And we're going to repeat that around. So I still have a chain space here and a chain space here. Join me when you get back to your starting chain space and we'll finish up the round together. I just finished my chain 1 after this corner, so now I'm back at the start. So I need to put 3 double crochet into this space. Here's 1, here's 2, and 3, followed by a chain 2, and then I need to join in the top of this turning chain here. Just like that. So you'll notice that your project is getting nice and wavy. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. So don't worry, you're on the right track. Let's move on to round 3. Round 3 starts with a chain 3, 2, 3, and turn our work. We're going to find that space at the base of the chain and put 2 double crochet here. There's 1 and 2. From here we need to chain 1 and put 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, which is here. So there's 1, here's 2, and 3, followed by a chain 1, and now we have a corner. Corners are always work the same. 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, followed by a chain 2, and 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, 3. After the corner, we need to chain 1 and put 3 double crochets in the next chain 1 space. There's 1, here's 2, and 3. So we're going to repeat that around, placing a corner in the corner. So 3 double crochets, 2, 3, followed by a chain 2, 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, 3, always followed by a chain 1. And then here on the sides, we're going to put 3 double crochet into the chain 1 space. There's 1, here's 2, and 3, followed by a chain 1. So we're going to repeat this around until we get back to the start, and we'll finish up together. And now I am back at the beginning of my round. So after working that cluster here on the side, I need to put a cluster into the space where I started. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3 double crochet there, followed by a chain 2, and then I'm going to join at the top of my chain 3, just like that, to close up the round. Let's hop right into round 4. So we're going to chain 3, 2, 3, and again rotate your work. So we're going to turn, put 2 double crochet into the space here at the base of the chain. There's 1 and 2, followed by a chain 1. So essentially what we're doing in row 4 is we're going to work our sides, which get 3 double crochet and a chain 1 in each of these chain 1 spaces, and then we're going to work our corner in these chain 2 spaces. 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1, corner, which is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 1, all here. So let's do a few together. First we have a couple of chain 1 spaces here on the sides. So those each get 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, and a chain 1. Moving on to the next chain 1 space, also 3 double crochet here, 2, 3, and a chain 1. Now we're at the corner, and the corners always work the same. 3 double crochet, there's 2, and 3, chain 2, 3 more double crochet, 1, 2, 3, followed by a chain 1. Let's work one more repeat together. 3 double crochet here, there's 2, and 3, followed by a chain 1 always. 3 double crochet into this next space here. There's 1, 2, and 3, followed by a chain 1. Now the corner. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. We're going to continue on around from here, and join me when you get to the end of the round. We'll finish up together and take it from there. That was my last cluster to work here on the side, and now I just need to close things up. So I'm going to put a cluster or 3 double crochet right here into this chain 1 space where we started. So there's 1, here's 2, and 3, followed by a chain 2, and we're going to join in the top of that turning chain. Just inserting into the 3rd chain of that turning chain and pulling through for a slip stitch. So yes, this is quite curly, but how are we going to turn this into a cardigan? Let me show you some magic. So we're going to take 2 opposite corners and just bring them together just like that. And look what just happened. We now have the start of a sleeve and the start of a body panel. So just by bringing those 2 opposite corners together, we're now creating 1/2 of our hexagon cardigan. So you'll want to continue repeating round 4 until this measurement is your desired armhole depth. Once you've achieved that desired armhole depth, join me back here and we'll work on widening the body. I continued working on my hexagon, and now I'm going to take the opposite ends and fold them, and would you look at that, I have the perfect armhole depth. Now listen, I'm working on a little sample here, but again, you'll want to work until this reaches your armhole depth that you want it to be. At this point, we need to create a seam here because this is going to be our cardigan opening. This is our sleeve, and we need to close up the seam up top here. So I'm just going to close it with a whip stitch seam, but you can use whatever seam you prefer. Does not matter if you want to do a mattress stitch seam, if you want to single crochet that seam closed, it's your prerogative. First thing we're going to do is we're going to flip this inside out, because I do want to put the seam on the inside. And then I'm just going to start from whichever corner, going under both loops of this chain here and both loops of the chain on the other side as well. I'm going to come through, tie a small knot here. We'll double knot it for security, yeah? Just going stitch for stitch, going under both loops of the stitch on this side, both loops of the stitch on that side, pull it through. Grabbing the next 2 stitches and pull it through. So when I tug, I'm tugging firmly but not too tight. I don't want things to pucker up here. So as soon as the tug starts to give me some resistance, I let it go. Don't forget that there are chains between your groups, and we need to seam across those chains as well. So continue down the length of your sleeve, and once you get down here, join me and we'll finish up together. I've got 1 more stitch here, and then I'm going to grab one of the chains of my corner. There we go. And as I pull this up, I'm going to then put it through this loop just to create a knot here, because now I'm done with my seam, and then I'm going to come back over and weave in this end. So what I like to do when I finish up a seam is just grab a few loops of the stitches just below. And my rule of 3 when weaving in ends, make sure you weave in 3 different directions. And that's going to ensure that your end doesn't go anywhere. So you don't need a long end, you just need to go in 3 different directions, just like that. Now we can fasten off, head to the other side, weave in this end, and then do all of this over again for a second panel. After you have your second panel, join me here and we'll talk about widening the body as well as the neck. Alrighty friends, hope you're still hanging in there with me because it is time to do a bit of math. So there are a few dimensions we need to add to our sweater potentially, and here's how we'll sort out how we'll do that. First, we want to see if we need to widen the body. So right now, the width of the body and the sleeves are the same. Depending on your personal and preferred dimensions, you may want the body a little bit wider for a more oversized fit or just to fit comfortably around you. So not only will we potentially widen the body panels, but we'll also add a little bit of width here at the back neck to accommodate the collar and make sure everything still lays very nicely. So let's talk about widening the body. When we widen the body, we're going to add stitches along the front and the back. I'm going to walk you through the steps of doing the math of widening the body. If you hit the number 0 or negative at any point during these steps, you can completely skip the widening the body portion and go directly to widening the back neck. Here in example 1, our armhole depth, which is this number right here, we're going to say is 9 inches. And our desired back width is 25 inches and our desired back neck width is 4 inches. The first step that we need to do is measure the body as it is right now. So if our armhole depth was 9 inches, this should be 9 inches and this should be 9 inches, but you'll just want to give that a measure to be sure. I'm going to assume that I was able to achieve 9 inches and 9 inches here, so that means the width of my body is 18 inches. So now we'll move on to step 2 of our math, and we're going to subtract the number that we achieved in step 1, which is 18, from the desired back width, which is here. So we're going to take 25 minus 18, and that gives us 7 inches. Now from here, we need to take that number 7 and subtract the number that we have for our desired back neck width, which is 4. So that's 7 minus 4. So we need to add 3 total inches to the body, but don't forget about step 4, which is to take this number and divide it by 2. And the reason we do that is because we want to add width evenly across our sweater, so we need to add 1.5 inches of length to either side of our sweater here. Here we go. So I'm going to flip this so I have the right side facing. This is my shoulder seam here, so I'm working from this bottom corner up towards my shoulder seam. So I'm going to grab my yarn here. We're going to join with a slip stitch here in this bottom corner. So I'm just going to insert my hook into that space, yarn over, and pull up that loop. From here, I need to chain 3 and put 2 double crochet here in the space where I joined. So there's 1 and 2. I'm going to chain 1 and put 3 double crochet in each chain 1 space all the way up my sweater opening. 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, all the way up. I'm here near my shoulder seam, and I just want to put a cluster in each of these chain 2 spaces right here at where my shoulder seam joins itself. Just like that. Okay? And now I'm just going to continue on down the other side of my cardigan. Join me when you get down to this corner. So I'm down here at this corner. I put my chain 1 after this cluster. So now I just need to place 3 double crochet into this space here. There's 1, here's 2, and 3. If you have additional rows to do to widen the body, you want to chain 4 and turn your work. Now we're going to skip this first cluster and place a cluster in this chain 1 space. There's 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and we'll just put a cluster in each chain 1 space across. Chain 1, 1, 2, 3, chain 1. So we'll repeat this all the way across. Now we're just set up with regular old granny stitch. Join me when you get down here and we'll finish up the row together. I'm placing my last cluster into this chain 1 space. And then from here I need to chain 1. I'm going to skip 2 double crochet of this cluster, and I just need to double crochet in the top of this turning chain. So I'm just going to dip my hook down into the top of that turning chain and place a double crochet. So if you have additional rows to do, we're going to move on and do 1 more together. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn our work, and then we're going to put 2 double crochet into this space down here. There's 2 and 3. So now we've got 3 total. So we had the starting chain 3, 2 additional double crochet, we've got 1 cluster here. Clusters are always followed by a chain 1, and then we're just going to continue to work in granny stitch across. 2 and 3. Okay, so I think you got the gist of it. You'll just repeat those 2 rows until you have as many rows as necessary to finish widening your body. So you can see already that we're adding a little bit more width to the body. Now you can see we're adding a bit more width to the body, and that's just going to increase the fit through the bust area. So continue working into your granny stitch all the way across. When you get down here, you're just going to put 3 double crochet in that last chain space, and then continue that row 2 and row 3 repeat until you have enough rows added to this side, and then you'll want to turn around and do the same exact thing for your other panel just to make sure they're identical. Once that's done, join me back here and we'll work on widening the neck. All panels have been properly widened as per the pattern, and I did not fasten off either side because we need to add a few rows for the back neck width. So the first thing we need to do is measure our sweater all the way across the body, and then we're going to take this number and subtract it from the desired back width. Whatever is the resulting number, we're going to divide that by 2, and that's going to tell us how much wider we need to make this area here. Let me show you how we add those rows. First things first, we need to find the center chain 1 space of this row here. So this row that we created along the opening. So the easiest way to do that is just to fold the panel in half, trace it all the way up to the top, and find that center chain 1 space. Then I'm going to pop in a locking stitch marker, just like that. So now we can go back to our working row, take out the marker, insert our hook. From here, we need to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to continue working in our granny stripe pattern until we reach our marked space. So we're going to jump into this chain 1 space here and place a cluster. There's 2 and 3, chain 1. Cluster in the next space, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1. And go ahead and do that until we get to our marked space. All right, 1 cluster goes into this space here, chain 1, and now I've reached my marked space. So I'm going to put 3 double crochet into that marked space to end this row. We're going to leave the remainder of these stitches unworked, and that will now become the front of our cardigan. And from here, we're going to repeat these rows until we have the desired measurement from the original math that we just did. So we'll want to chain 4, 3, and 4, turn our work, and we're just going to continue in that granny stripe pattern. So I'm just going to do 2 rows here for my little sample, but you'll do however many rows it takes to achieve the measurement we just got with our math. It's one thing that I learned about crochet very early on. There's a lot more math involved than you would think, especially if you want to make garments, but that's what makes them fit well. So we're just continuing working our clusters in each chain 1 space, and then in our last space here, we're just going to put 3 double crochet. Okay, once you've done however many rows you need to do, I'm going to stop at just 2 because again, I'm just working this small sample. We'll want to fasten off here, leaving a tail long enough to create a seam. You only have to do that with one of your hexagons, but I'm going to do that with this one. So what I like to do when I'm determining how long to fasten off for a seam is I like to measure the seam 3 times. Oh, so there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. A little bit extra for good measure, and then fasten off. I'd rather have too much yarn for a seam than too little. And then we can lift this loop up and out. You do not need to place a chain here before you release this loop. So now you want to widen the back neck of your other panel as well. Then we'll seam those together, and then we're going to talk about these sleeves. Now that the body of our cardigan is done, it's time to work on these sleeves. We'll start first by lengthening them, and then if you don't want to do any shaping, you can finish off from there. But I will show you a way to slightly taper your sleeves for a simple cuff. First things first, we need to find a chain space towards the bottom of our sleeve. And by the bottom, I mean the side that kind of comes out from the underarm. So I've got a cluster right here, but I'm just going to grab this chain space that's right here, and I'll need to join in that space. I've inserted my hook into that space, then I'm going to yarn over and pull up the loop. I can now chain 3, 2, and 3, and place 2 additional clusters into that space. Here's 1, and here's 2. Now I'm going to place clusters in each chain 1 space around until I get back to the beginning of my round. And when you reach this area here where your seam is, just like the back neck, we're going to put a cluster in each of these chain spaces. So 1 goes here, chain one, and then one goes right here. Just like that. So there's our seam, clusters on either side. Continue making clusters around. So I made my way all the way back around to where I started. So this is the last cluster I just made. This is the first cluster of the round. To join, we're going to slip stitch in the top of our turning chain. Just make sure you don't forget that chain one after this cluster. And we are going to turn our work from here. So we'll chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. We'll want to continue working like this until we reach the desired length. That's one sleeve option for just an open sleeve with no shaping. Now, if you do want to do a small amount of shaping, continue in this way, working in these granny stripe rounds until you're about 1.5 inches away from the full length that you want for your sleeve. And once you get there, join me back here and I'll show you how to make that slightly tapered sleeve. So I just finished joining on the last round of the sleeve lengthening that I want to do, and I'm ready to move into option 1, which is that slightly tapered sleeve. So I'm going to chain 3, 2, 3, and turn my work. Next step is to double crochet in the space here at the base of my chain. So 1 double crochet goes there, and I'm going to follow that with a chain. So what we're going to do around is, instead of doing a full cluster, which is 3 double crochets, we're going to place just 2 double crochets in each chain space around. So we're already starting to decrease a bit by doing 2 stitches in each space instead of 3. Okay, so I've reached the end of my round. I've got 2 double crochet in each of my chain spaces. So I'm going to finish up with a slip stitch in the top of the turning chain, which is right here. So our next round is going to be worked on the right side of our work. I'm already on the right side, so I'm not going to turn, but if your previous round was on the wrong side, you will need to turn. But I'm already on the right side, so I'm not going to turn. But I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to single crochet in the space at the base of the chain. So that's this space right here. I'm just going to place a single crochet right there. So now I need to chain 1, and I'm going to place 2 single crochet in the next space. So here's 1 and 2. Chain 1, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet in the following space, followed by a chain 1. So we're going to repeat that around as many times as possible. So 2 singles in the next space, 1 and 2, chain 1, 1 single in the following space. And we'll just repeat this as many times as we can. But how many times you repeat that is going to depend on the size of your individual sleeve. 2 singles in this space, followed by a chain 1, and just like that, we're already back at the start. So we're going to join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the round, just like that, and now we can fasten off. And what you have here, and my preferred method for this cardigan, is just a slightly tapered sleeve right here at the bottom. Nothing too dramatic, nothing that's going to take forever, but it does give you a little bit of contrast from the width of here. It just tapers in ever so slightly. So now that we've worked our sleeves, and of course you'll want to repeat this for your other sleeve, and it will be time to talk about lengthening our cardigan if you'd like. Now that our sleeve is all set, it's time to talk about lengthening our cardigan if you want to. If you like the length as is, go ahead and leave it. But if you want something a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more fancy, go on ahead and add some length to your cardigan, okay? So to do that, we're going to flip it over to the bottom side. And if you're right-handed crocheter like me, we're going to start down in this corner. Left-handed folks, you're going to start down here. And we're just going to be working in rows, back and forth across the bottom. Let me show you how to do that. So we're going to insert our hook into this chain space here. You know what? Let me get you a little bit closer. Come on, get all up in my business, okay? There we go. So we're going to join right around that turning chain right there. So I'm going to insert my hook under that turning chain, yarn over, and I'm going to pull up that loop. And I'm going to chain 3, 2, 3. That counts as my first double crochet. And I'm going to place 2 more double crochet right here. There's 1 and 2, followed by a chain 1. So we're working in row ends right here, because remember, this is from where we extended our body. So I worked around this first turning chain. I'm going to skip this space right here and place 3 double crochets around this next double crochet here. So around this row end. That gets 3. 1, 2, and 3. followed by a chain 1. So now I'm back where I can start working in granny stripe. So I'm just going to be working 3 double crochet into each of these chain 1 spaces, starting with this one right here. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. And we're just jumping right back into that same granny stripe pattern we've been doing before. Nothing new, nothing fancy here. Just 3 double crochets going into each chain 1 space. Chain 1. 3 double crochet here. 1, 2, and 3, followed by a chain 1. So we'll repeat this all the way around the bottom of our cardigan. And join me when you get right here, and I'll show you what we'll do if we need to add some more length from there. I've made it over to the other end of my cardigan, so just as a little frame of reference, here's where I am. So here is where I started, here in this bottom corner to add some length, and here is where I am, right here on the other side. So to finish up this row, I did my chain 1 after my cluster here, and now I'm just going to place a double crochet around this last turning chain right here. Now, if you want to continue adding length, here is the row that you're going to repeat. So it'll be a 1 row repeat. That is always so hard to say. It's a 1 row repeat from here. So we'll chain 4, 2, 3, and turn our work. So now I'm working on the wrong side. And from here, I need to place 2 double crochet into this space here at the base of my chain. There's 1 and 2. And now I'm set up to jump right back into my granny stitch. So 3 double crochet, 2, 3, in the next space, 3 double crochet, 2, 3, ooh, oh my goodness, 3 in the next space. So we're just going to continue in that granny stripe all the way around. So I'm right here working in this direction. I'm going to go all the way around. And then if I want to keep going, I'm going to go that way and that way and that way and that way. So you'll just repeat that until you get to the length that you want. Just keep in mind that we will be adding a collar to this, and the collar is going to add somewhere between 1.5 to 2 inches to the bottom of your cardigan. So stop when you're about 1.5 to 2 inches from where you want your actual cardigan length to be, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about a collar. At this point, we have made our base hexagons, widened the body, added the back neck, shaped our sleeves, and even added length. So now it's time to bring it all home with our collar. So I'm going to show you 2 different collar options. The first of which is going to be our minimal collar. So with our right side facing, we're going to join with a slip stitch in the space where the 2 hexagons meet at the back neck. Right here in this space is where we're going to join. So I'm going to insert my hook into that space. So this is the join right here. I'm just going to go into the space to the left, insert my hook, yarn over, and bring you closer. Yarn over, and then we're going to pull up that loop. Chain 3, and put 2 double crochet into this same space. 1 and 2. So we're going to begin working in granny stripe all the way around pretty much the entirety of our cardigan. So we've done 3 here, we'll chain 1, and we're working along row ends. So we're going to skip this next row end, and we're going to put 3 double crochet into the following chain space. There's 2 and 3, followed by a chain 1. And depending on how long your back neck is, you'll continue doing that. So place a cluster, skip the next row end, cluster in the next row end. Okay, so now I am at my granny clusters here along the front of my cardigan. So I'm going to continue working in my granny stripe until I reach the bottom corner. Alrighty, we've made it to this bottom corner. Remember, this is the double crochet that was here at the end of that row from where we lengthened the body. Here in this corner, we want to work a normal corner just like we were doing when we were making our base hexagon. So remember, that is 3 double crochet, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 more double crochet, 2 and 3. So that allows us to essentially make this bottom corner here. So now we're going to work in granny stripe all the way around until we get to this other corner. I'm nearly at my other corner here, just placing a cluster. Okay, so for my next corner, I'm just going to put it right here in this turning chain. So 3 double crochet here, there's 2 and 3, chain 2, 3 more double crochet. Alrighty, and now we can jump back into our pattern here. So I'm going to go into this chain space to do some granny stripe. 2 and 3, chain 1, and 1, 2, 3, chain 1. Okay, so you want to continue that all the way up the front of your cardigan, and then join me when you get up here, which is where we started the round. I am back where I started, so this was my first cluster, and this is the one I just completed. So I'm going to join with a slip stitch in the top of the turning chain here. And now I can chain 3 and turn my work. I'm now going to place 2 double crochet here in the space at the base of my chain. Oop. If my hook wants to get in there, there you go, girl. And now I'm just going to continue to work in my granny stripe pattern all the way down to the corner. And in my corner, I'm going to put those 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet again in that corner, work along the bottom, put 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet in this corner, and then work all the way back up this collar until I get where I started. And then I'm going to do that one more time. So there's 3 total rounds involved with this collar. So I'm going to make my entire collar, come back and show you that gorgeous minimal look. So I've just finished my minimal collar, and as you can see, it pretty much blends in with the rest of the cardigan. Now, if you want to keep going on your collar, you certainly could. Then that way you could maybe bend this down a little bit, really have that lovely shape to it. And from here, you'd want to block this, which we'll talk about in a bit, but I need to rip this all out and show you how we're going to do our ribbed collar. Now it's time to jump into the ribbed collar. But before we can do that collar, we need to do a setup round. So I'm going to flip this around. We need to join in the space to the left of where the panels came together. So I'm going to join right here because I'm right-handed. I'm going to be working in this direction. First things first, I need to insert my hook into that space. I'm going to then yarn over, leaving a nice long tail, and pull up that loop. Just like that. Now I'm going to chain 1. Pull that down a little, and then I need to place 2 single crochet in that same space where I joined, right here. So 1 and 2. And we're going to put 2 single crochet in the row ends of each row until we get to where we can start working in our granny stripe. So I'm going to put 2 single crochet around this row end, 2 single crochet go here as well. Now I've reached the place where my granny stripe is, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch across. So that's 1 single crochet for each double crochet of my clusters and 1 single crochet in my chain spaces to account for the chains. So single in each double crochet, and you can single either into the chain or into the chain space, it doesn't matter. So we're going to do that all the way down until we reach the corner. Alrighty, so I have made it to my corner, and in my corner I'm just going to put 1 single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. And now I want to continue with this setup round, placing 1 single crochet in each stitch and chain space. So we're going to repeat this all the way around. We need to do this setup round to give us a nice solid base to put our ribbing onto. So continue working in single crochet all the way around the bottom of your cardigan. In this corner, single 1, chain 2, single 1, singles all the way up here and all the way back around to where we started. Remember, when you're working in row ends, 2 single crochet in each row end. Join me when you get back to the start. Just 1 more row end for me to work into here, and then I can join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of this round. Just like that. So I'm going to fasten that off, and I'd want to weave in this end. Now that our setup round is all done, it's time to add the ribbing. So we're going to do that in a couple parts. We're going to do the bottom ribbing first, and then we'll do this front ribbing. So to start our bottom ribbing, we'll want to join in this left panel because we're going to work in this direction. Now I am right-handed, so I'm going to work in this direction. If you're left-handed, you're going to want to start here and work in this direction. I'm going to insert my hook into the chain 2 space down here, just like that. I'm going to yarn over and pull up that loop to join. And from here, I need to chain 6. Now you can chain more if you want a thicker ribbing or less if you want a thinner ribbing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I'm going to slip stitch in each chain down the line, starting with the second chain. So I've got the loop that's on my hook, I've got my first chain here, I'm going to go to my second chain here. So insert, yarn over, and pull through both loops on the hook. Make sure we keep those slip stitches relatively loose because we will need to work into them later. There's 3, here's 4, and 5. Now I'm going to bring you a little closer so you can see what we do next. Alrighty, so now to join, we'll want to slip stitch into the same space where we joined, so into that chain space, and then we'll also slip stitch into this single crochet right here. So that's going to anchor our ribbing to our cardigan. Now we want to turn our work. So I like to turn it this way. There's the loop that's on our hook. We're skipping these 2 stitches. Those are the slip stitches, our anchors. And we're going to half double crochet, slip stitch in this stitch right here. So here's how we do that. We yarn over first, insert our hook into the back loop of that slip stitch, yarn over, pull through the loop, and pull through the other 2 loops on our hook. Okay, so there was the first one. We need to do that for all of them. So we have 4 more from here. Yarn over, insert into just the back loop, yarn over, pull through the loop, and the additional loops on the hook. I always do this a little bit slower because it's very, very easy for things to, the tension to get weird, or yeah, just take your time. There's 3, here's 4, 1 more right here, makes 5. Okay, so now we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and now we need to slip stitch in the back loop all the way down. So this is the 3rd loop, there's the front loop, and the back loop is all the way up here. So not this loop, not that loop, it's this one. So we're going to slip stitch across. Remember, keeping those slip stitches relatively loose. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we want to find the next 2 single crochets along our cardigan. So this is the last single crochet we worked into. Here are the next 2. So we're going to slip stitch into both of those. There's 1 and 2. Turn our work, skip those 2 slip stitches. We're starting here. In the back loop, we're going to half double crochet, slip stitch here. So insert, yarn over, pull through everything. Yarn over, pull up the loop, and do everything else. There's 2, there's 3, there's 4, 1 more, makes 5. Chain 1 and turn. So we're going to repeat that down the line. Now this is certainly going to take a good while, but the payoff is so worth it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Find your next 2 single crochets right here. So this is the one that's worked into. So the next 2 are right here. Slip stitch goes here and here. Turn, skip those 2 slip stitches, and we're working in the back loop from here. 1, 2, 3, 3. 4, 1 more here, makes 5. So what happens is this lovely kind of braided effect on the front. Really, really gorgeous ribbing, but it does take a good while. So I'm going to add a bit more ribbing here so you can really see the full effect, and then we'll kind of start the ribbing that goes up the front of the collar as well. If you're a right-handed crocheter like me, you're going to be joining down here on the bottom right panel of your cardigan to start working your ribbing up the neckline here. And I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before I get to the single crochets here on the body. So let's start our ribbing together. I'm going to join under both loops of that bottom stitch, yarn over my hook, and I'm working with a starting chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember that we're going to slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now I'm at the body. I'm going to slip stitch in the same stitch that I started with right here. There we go. And the next stitch. There we go. Now I can turn my work and do my half doubles down this way. So remember, we're skipping these first 2 stitches here. I'm going to place my first half double slip stitch in the back loop of this slip stitch here. Here's 1. Here's 2. 3. Here's 4. And 5. That first row, oh, she's the Dickens, okay? So since this is a sample, I get to stop and just let you know that you're meant to continue picking up loops down this way. So remember, we have the loops here on our ribbing, and then we're going to jump into the single crochet stitches here on the body of our work. We're going to continue all the way up the neckline, and remember, from that setup row we have single crochets all the way up here. We won't do any shaping in this slip stitching here, just continue on as if this was a straight row. We're going to work all the way down, and we're going to finish up right at this very bottom tip of our bottom ribbing. Once you're done with that, you can fasten off, and we're going to move on to those finishing steps. And don't you dare stop the video right here. You do all those finishing steps or I'm gonna come get you. I ain't even joking. At this point, your cardigan is going to look a lot more finished than mine, but again, this is just a sample. So just imagine I have this gorgeous ribbing around the whole collar. I recommend steam blocking your piece, and to do that, you're going to need some blocking boards, or if you don't have those, you can just put some towels down on a mattress. That will work just fine. You don't need to have these kinds of supplies. So you want to interlock a few blocking boards, just like that. And then you can place your cardigan down. And now we want to pin this into the dimensions that we need. I'm going to use just regular rust-proof T-pins for most of this. I'm going to start here at the top and just pin that back body. And as I go, I'm going to slightly tug this just to make sure we've got that good drape and flowiness that I want to have. But ultimately, we're going to pin this to its dimensions. Now, when you get to your ribbing down at the bottom, this is going to be very resistant to blocking. It's a very tight ribbing. So I recommend at this point using some knit blockers. So it's kind of like placing multiple pins at a time. But what the knit blocker is going to do is kind of apply that even tension all the way across, and nothing is going to pull or tug between those pins because they're close enough together. So again, once you've kind of got the opening where you want it to be, take one of these knit blockers and then press it down in there. So that ribbing is not going anywhere. And you would want to do the same thing for the cardigan opening as well. So then you'll pin it on this side too, and then you want to steam it. So this is the garment steamer that I like to use. I've had it for years and I will link it for you, but you'll want to turn it on. And once this stops blinking, it's ready to steam. And at that point, I push the trigger right here. Steam starts to come out and I'm going to run that across my cardigan. Now I'm not gonna let this hot plate here touch my cardigan, especially if you have any kind of man-made or synthetic fibers in there. So acrylic, polyester, nylon, those will melt. So don't let this plate touch it. I wouldn't let it touch this either because then it'll flatten our stitches. We don't want that. So here's what I recommend. Go ahead and steam it one good time. Let it dry thoroughly. I steamed my sweaters like 3 or 4 times before I took them off the blocking boards. So that's what I recommend for you. Steam it down really, really good till it's damp to the touch and let it dry for an entire day. And do that for maybe like 3 or 4 days straight if you've got the floor space for it. And once you unpin this and try it on, oh my gosh, honey, you are gonna have the drapiest, most gorgeous cardigan you have ever worn. Hey love, if you made it here, that means you are now the proud owner of a Hexagranny cardigan. Ooh, I am so proud of you for taking the leap to crochet your own clothes. Slipping into a sweater I handmade for myself changed my life, and I just know that it's going to do the same for you. And if this isn't your first crochet garment, thank you so much for taking this journey with me to create an adorable custom fit Hexagon cardigan. The customization options are endless, so I hope you have found a way to make this piece as unique as you are. Now do your girl a favor and share your project over on Ravelry so others can see how amazing it is. And don't forget to show off your project on Instagram and be sure to tag me. And then you can pop by TLYC Makers on Facebook. That's my Facebook group and we would love to see your project there too. Thanks a million for watching and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.